Okay, so imagine this. It's spring, and maybe you're thinking about that, classic poetic image, flowers, gentle
Right,
breezes.
Tennyson's Thoughts of Love.
Exactly. A fuller crimson comes upon the robin's breast, that sort of thing. Romance in the air.
It's a lovely idea. But if you were actually out on the Pennine Hills, say, dawn in April, the reality of spring love looks, well, a bit less gentle.
A bit. I'd say intensely chaotic.
And freezing cold.
Definitely freezing.
Yeah.
Stiff fingers guaranteed. But what you'd be seeing is, well, it's why we're doing this deep dive today.
Yes. We are diving into the absolutely fascinating, surprisingly complex world of the black grouse lick.
And it really does hold some big clues, not just about bird behavior, but even about how scientific ideas develop and clash over time.
We've got some amazing source material, too. Really detailed first-hand observations from people who spent, countless cold hours watching these birds.
Yeah, down to the second stuff. Plus, accounts from researchers, and we'll get into a really significant historical scientific debate. So our mission today, unpack this whole drama, understand the courtship, the fighting, the mystery of female choice.
And see what these incredible birds can actually teach us, right? What are the secrets hiding out there on that hill?
Okay, let's set the scene. It's early, like 5:30 a.m., first light just starting.
Exactly. Air's sharp, biting cold. But on the ground, for the male black grouse, there is absolutely zero stillness. It's constant action.
Not just active, it's frenetic, isn't it? They're either fighting or launching into these intense displays.
And switching between them in seconds, the sources say it perfectly. Bustle and tussle, noise and poise, fast and frantic.
And as the light comes up, it must look pretty dramatic. Those white feathers on their backs.
Oh yeah, the rump feathers. When they fluff them up, the sun catches them like a chain of bright white lamps. It's this incredible contrast with their super black bodies.
Though interestingly, I read that the iridescent blue on the neck shows up best before the sun's fully up, or on cloudy days.
That's right. But once the sun hits, it's all about that stark black and white. Someone described it as bold, conspicuous, even somehow artificial.
And the sounds, not just fighting noises, right?
No, you get the low roo-cooing, but also this really distinctive, rapid, vibrato sneeze. Like, shwee-wee-wee.
Shwee-wee-wee, okay. And that often goes with the flutter jumping.
Yes. They leap straight up, flapping hard, sometimes twisting, then land right back down. Looks exhausting.
Completely wired. And this sudden ramp up in frenzy, more jumping, more sneezing, that means something specific.
It means they've spotted her.
Yep.
An approaching female, long before we likely would.
Ah, okay. So the energy spikes because she's incoming. Must be quite an entrance flying into that scene.
She flies in, yeah, often from a predictable direction, but lands a little way off. And here's where it gets interesting. She doesn't just dive in.
No, what does she do?
She just stands there, watchful, at the edge, sometimes for a good 5, maybe 10 minutes.
Just surveying the chaos.
Exactly. Observers in Scandinavia have seen them perch high up in trees to look. Here, apparently, they've even landed right on top of the observation hide.
On the hide. Wow. Okay, so she takes her time assessing. Then what?
Then she starts walking, deliberately, towards the center.
And the males notice her moving in.
Oh, immediately. The ones nearest the edge, often the younger guys, they make a beeline for her. Roo-cooing furiously, head low, throat puffed out, tail spread wide.
Full display. And how does she react to this welcoming committee?
This is what surprises people. She seems, well, almost completely indifferent.
Really?
Yeah, she'll just stand there, maybe look right over the whole field, perhaps preen a feather like she hasn't got a care in the world. Might even peck at a grass seed right in front of some poor guy doing his absolute best display.
But that's got to be an act, right? I mean, surely she's not actually indifferent.
Almost certainly not. Her heart's probably hammering away, pitter-pat for all we know. That stillness, head held high, scanning everything, it suggests intense focus.
So she's evaluating,
Mm-hmm.
sizing up the competition, figuring out who's who, where the main action is.
Exactly. The sources suggest she's evolved to be this flinty-eyed, cool customer because picking the best male is such a critical, maybe once-a-year decision.
A scouting mission disguised as a casual wander. So she moves deeper in, visiting the different territories.
Yep, she tours the territories. And as she approaches a male, you see the specific display called the crouch. David Lack described it well.
The crouch, what's that?
The male presses himself incredibly low, legs totally hidden, almost flat to the ground, perfectly still, but still roo-cooing softly. You only see it when a hen is right there, approaching his spot.
Wow, like they're trying to look solid grounded.
Maybe. Other males further off might do it too, or flutter jump, but they're all facing her.
Yeah.
Then she gets near a particular male, one the observers knew well.
Ah, the one with the name.
Yeah, wonky tail. Instantly recognizable because his tail feathers always leaned left. Probably an old injury. He was a veteran, third year in the same spot, just right of center.
Wonky tail.
Okay.
And what's his move when she comes near?
He goes into his circling display, struts really fast in a wide circle around her, roo-cooing constantly, spreads his wing feathers so they drag on the ground.
Makes himself look bigger.
Exactly. Lowers his chest feathers, too, described like aircraft undercarriage, and it highlights these 3 bold white spots on his flanks. The whole point seems to be keeping himself sideways onto her.
Why sideways?
So she gets the full view, the red combs over his eyes, the swollen blue neck, those white spots on the shoulder and wing, the black tail curl, the white bum feathers, everything.
A 360 showcase, but presented sideways. She wasn't immediately impressed, though.
No, she turned away at first, but he kept at it. She's still evaluating, maybe making him work for it.
So where does she go next? Still scouting.
She moves towards the territory of the guy who seemed to be the top cock that year. They called him Black Spot.
Because?
Small black spot on his left white rump feather, couple of tiny ones on the right, easy ID. And they knew he was top dog because he'd mated 2 females right there the day before.
Ah, the prime real estate with a proven record. Does his display differ much?
Similar circling, but the sources say he got closer and closer in smaller and smaller rings. Maybe more intense roo-cooing. Same trailing wings and lowered body.
But even with him, the top male, she hesitates, shies away.
Yeah, there's this sense of indecision, maybe even apprehension. It's a massive decision for her, remember? Might be her first visit ever if she's young. Mating happens once a year, fertilizes all her eggs.
Huge implications. So
Yeah.
choosing the right partner is paramount.
Absolutely. The sources mentioned potential risks, too. Mating can be rough sometimes, so there's this visible conflict drawn in, but cautious.
So she pulls back from Black Spot for a bit, goes to resample the wares.
Exactly. Visits another male nearby, black bar identified by a thin black line on a rump feather. Then, eventually, she comes back to Black Spot.
Returns to the prime spot, and then
He starts his intense circling again. And after a few minutes of this, she finally gives a clear signal. She suddenly squats low right in front of him.
okay, decision made. This is it.
Nearly. Even now, there's hesitation. He moves in, puts a foot tentatively on her back. She jumps away immediately.
Still.
Happens again and again. It's like you can see those conflicting impulses battling it out. She seems to control the timing completely.
It really emphasizes her agency, doesn't it? She's the one calling the shots.
Totally.
Yeah.
And just when it seems like it's finally going to happen, boom, interruption.
Ah, the other males.
Yep. Black Spot breaks off to chase Black Bar, who's apparently edged a tiny bit into his territory. A quick fight.
And the female's reaction to this delay.
The observer described it brilliantly as world-weary irritation. Like she's thinking, honestly, boys, can we just get on with it?
Huh, perfect. It highlights the different priorities at that moment, doesn't it?
It really does. And just quickly, about those black spots on the males, there was that study.
Oh, right, the Salisbury study. It suggested spots might indicate flaws, stress.
Something like that. Maybe carryover effects from tough times or fights. So Black Spot, even being the top male, might not be perfect by every measure. He's just the best available package, perhaps.
That adds another layer, doesn't it? How she weighs up dominance versus these potential subtle signs of past hardship.
Exactly. Anyway, after the fight, Black Spot comes back to the first female.
Resumes his courtship.
Yes. More circling, closer still. She squats again, and this time she adds another signal, lowers her wings slightly, showing off her own white shoulder spots, mirroring his.
A definite yes this time.
Seems so. And it's incredibly fast. He jumps on, flaps for balance, grabs her neck feathers gently in his beak, bends his tail under. Cloaca's touch.
The cloacal kiss.
Right. Sperm transferred instantly. Takes maybe 2 seconds. The source mentions the whole evolutionary question of why birds lost penises.
Another fascinating detour for another time, but 2 seconds.
Why so quick?
Because chaos ensues. Almost every time, the sources say, the mating male gets jumped on by his neighbors.
Seriously. While he's mating, mid-act, up to 3 other males pile in. In this case, Wonky Tail and Black Fart plunge right into the mix.
What are they trying to achieve? Just stop him.
Stop him or, incredibly, maybe even try to get their own sperm in there during the confusion. It's a real scrum.
And the poor female.
She scrambles out, often minus a few feathers, and, as the source charmingly puts it, a little dignity. Then she stands nearby and preens her vent area.
Why preen there?
Could be several things: helping sperm uptake, checking for parasites picked up in the melee, or just recomposing herself. Then she flies off, usually clucking, to go feed.
Her job is done for the year,
Oh.
essentially. And the male, Black Spot, does he savor his victory?
Apparently not. Straight back to Rukuing, maybe a brief fight with the interferers, lets out a few more hoarse sneezes. Back to business.
Incredible. Months of effort, displaying, fighting, all that energy for 2 seconds of mating, followed by a brawl.
And for her, one moment determines the father of all her offspring for the year. She's usually only on the leak for a few days total.
The investment versus the fleeting outcome is just staggering. Okay, so while all that was unfolding, another female arrived.
Yes, a second one landed. Started that same slow, watchful walk towards the center, attracting male attention as she went.
Any interaction between the females?
Actually, yes, which was interesting. The first female, the one who just mated, flared her tail and charged the newcomer briefly.
Really?
Yep.
Asserting priority.
Seems like it. The second female moved off but came back soon after. The observer noted it was surprising because you might expect more competition, but antagonism seemed limited, not like some other grouse species where females crowd around the top male.
Interesting. So female number 2 goes through her own evaluation. Who does she choose?
She also eventually squats for Black Spot, his second mating of the morning.
Okay, so he's definitely the preferred male, but then something unexpected.
Exactly. A third female arrives, and this one, to everyone's surprise, chooses Wonky Tail.
Away after 3 years. The underdog.
Finally gets his chance. But there was a problem.
Oh no, don't tell me. The wonky tail.
It seems so. Something about the angle meant the cloacal kiss probably didn't happen properly. She moved off afterwards and didn't do the usual post-mating preen.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. After all that time. But wait, she comes back.
She does. About 5 minutes later, she goes back to him, solicits again. This time it seems more successful, despite Black Bar trying to interfere again.
Phew. Okay,
Yeah.
Success at last. And Wonky Tail's reaction. Pure elation. A victory dance.
The observer looked specifically for any sign of triumph. Found none. He just went straight back to Rukuing, fought Black Bar briefly, sneezed. Business as usual.
Utterly stoic. So the takeaway is, Black Spot gets most, but crucially, not all the matings. Even Wonky Tail gets a look in.
Which throws us right back to that central nagging question. How are they choosing? What are the criteria? And it's looks, vigor, where they stand, something else.
Because they all look so similar, don't they? Like men in tuxedos, as the source puts it. They've all got the impressive kit, the spots, the tail, the neck, the combs.
Right. If they all look pretty much perfect, or at least really good, how does one guy get so much action and others almost none? What subtle thing is she picking up on?
That's the million-dollar question. We did see that really obvious poor condition can be detected. The sick-looking male got ignored.
True. Maybe that long watching period at the start is partly about assessing stamina, seeing who flags first after hours of displaying.
That makes sense. Endurance is a proxy for quality. But what about position? Why the center? It's not like there's better food there.
No special resources at all, just open ground. Why should being Mr. Right in the middle matter so much?
This is where that curious thought comes in, right? The idea that maybe they're just copying each other.
Exactly. Maybe female A chooses male X, not because she's independently decided he's the best, but because she saw female B choose him first. It becomes a kind of fashion.
Okay, this copying idea, it wasn't first thought of with black grouse, was it? It came from sage grouse studies.
That's right. Researcher Haven Wiley, back in the 1960s, watching those huge sage grouse leks in the American West. Hundreds of males sometimes.
And he saw similar female behavior. Arriving, walking to the center, choosing central males.
Very similar. And the mating skew was even more extreme. He recorded one male getting 169 matings in a season.
Wow. And like with the black grouse, Wiley, you couldn't pinpoint why that male was so successful.
No obvious reason. The top male wasn't necessarily more vigorous. In fact, he'd look exhausted. The spot itself had no special features.
So Wiley thought maybe they were just following the crowd, using other females as a cue.
He did. He wondered if the attraction was primarily to other females already gathered there, creating a hotspot that drew in more females, a self-reinforcing popularity loop.
Which leads to experiments, trying to test this copying idea with dummies.
Yes, the somewhat notorious dummy experiments. Wiley tried it first with sage grouse, putting stuffed females out, but it didn't really work to create new hotspots.
But others had tried earlier, right? David Lack in Scotland.
Way back in 1938, He put out stuffed male black grouse dummies. They got attacked. Put out a female dummy. It was extremely popular with the males.
Popular is it?
Copulated with, or attempted copulation, 56 times in 45 minutes by one male, apparently.
Good grief. Ethical considerations aside for a moment, did that show copying by real females?
Lack didn't record that aspect.
Right.
Later researchers, Crate and Hogan in the 60s, even broke Lack's record 2 hours of attempted copulation with a dummy.
The poor dummy. And the poor males. But still no answer on copying.
Not until Rauno Alatalo and his team in the 90s. They'd noticed that successful black grouse males often got matings in streaks. Success seemed to attract more success.
So they designed an experiment specifically to test copying.
Right. They put stuffed female dummies in the territories of normally unsuccessful males. Placed them right on the ground before dawn. They also tried dummies on sticks and duck decoys as controls.
And what happened with the real females?
Okay, so the males predictably went nuts for the dummies. But the key finding was this. When a dummy female was placed on the ground in a male's territory, real females spent significantly more time visiting that territory compared to days without the dummy.
Ah, so seeing a female already there on the ground did make that male more attractive to other females.
It strongly suggests that, yes, the dummies on sticks or the duck decoys didn't have the same effect. It supports copying, at least in that specific setup.
There's always a but in science, isn't there? Another experiment pointed the other way.
There is. Mark Boyce's work with captive sage grouse in Wyoming in the late 80s.
Captive. How did that work?
He had females in a central cage, surrounded by caged males. He could randomize the male positions, and crucially, sometimes he put a companion female in a male's cage.
To directly test if seeing another female with a male made him the preferred choice. And
The choosing females did go near the males who were strutting the most. But, and this is the key bit, they were not particularly drawn to the males who simply had a female companion in with them.
so the mere presence of another female wasn't the deciding factor.
Didn't seem to be. And even more telling, when Boyce presented the same setup of males to different females one after another, they often independently chose the same male without seeing the previous choices.
Okay, so that suggests they are making independent assessments based on some quality and just happen to agree, contradicting the copying idea.
It points that way, yes. So the evidence is mixed. Maybe copying happens sometimes in the wild when judging quality is hard, like Alatalo found. Or maybe females usually evaluate independently and just converge on the best option, like Boyce found.
It's unusual for birds, though, right? To prefer a male who's already mated?
Generally, yes, especially if males help with parenting. But on leeks, males offer nothing but genes, so maybe the calculation changes. Perhaps choosing the popular guy means your sons might inherit that attractiveness, the dangerous not to follow fashion idea.
Still feels like a bit of a puzzle. Which actually brings us neatly back to that huge historical debate, doesn't it? The root of all these questions about mate choice.
Absolutely. Darwin versus Wallace on sexual selection itself.
We know they both got to natural selection, but they really split on this. Darwin's view.
Darwin was a firm believer in sexual selection by female choice. He argued females are discerning, they have aesthetic preferences, and their choices drive the evolution of male beauty, elaborate displays, songs.
Even if that beauty doesn't help survival.
Yes, he thought beauty could be chosen for beauty's sake, desirable even if slightly injurious. He believed females had good taste.
And that amateur ornithologist, Serralis, watching the black grouse decades later, his observations seemed to back Darwin up perfectly.
Amazingly so. Edmund Sellis, watching in 1907-1908, he saw a clear female choice. He saw males not harassing females. And critically, he saw the fighting subside when females arrived the opposite of what Darwin had initially thought. Sellis basically said, look, I'm seeing what Darwin predicted.
But his work was ignored.
Published in obscure journals, largely overlooked by the mainstream, much to his frustration, but he saw that female agency.
Okay, so that's Darwin's side. Wallace, totally different take.
Completely different. Wallace developed the vitality theory. He basically argued all that male flashiness, bright colors, ornaments wasn't about attracting females at all.
Not all, then what was it?
Just overflow. Surplus vitality. He thought males just naturally had more energy, and this expressed itself as bright colors according to some general laws of growth. Display was just an internal impulse.
The peacock's tail isn't for impressing peahens, it's just energetic spillage.
Pretty much. He dismissed female choice as no longer tenable, said sexual selection was just natural selection favoring the fittest who just happened to be brighter. And females were dull only because natural selection favored camouflage for them.
That sounds, well, flimsy now. Circular reasoning, ignoring the purposefulness of display.
Yeah, the logic seems weak today. A bit misogynistic maybe in assuming inherent male vitality. And puzzling because Wallace saw birds of paradise displaying on their leks. He collected them.
He saw the performance firsthand, so why argue it was meaningless?
The sources suggest his later turn towards spiritualism was key. He started emphasizing a unique gap between human and animal minds, making him reluctant to grant animals aesthetic sense or conscious choice.
So his philosophical views overruled his scientific observations.
It appears so. He ended up arguing animal beauty had no utility, which contradicted his own core ideas about natural selection favoring useful traits.
Weird. Did anyone push back against Wallace at the time? Besides Darwin himself earlier on.
Yes, Darwin's defenders did. Conway Lloyd Morgan asked, if it's just growth laws, why isn't the whole animal equally fancy? George Romanes pointed out the intricate designs, not just colors like the peacock's eye spots. How could that be random overflow, and why use it only in courtship?
Good points. But Wallace's view still gained ground.
After Darwin and his main supporters died, yes, Wallace was the survivor, the elder statesman. His vitality theory, despite the holes, became influential, almost the accepted wisdom for a time. People started citing it like fact.
So Wallace got his belated revenge. Sexual selection got sidelined.
For decades, largely yes, especially female choice. Wallace's narrower idea that maybe bright colors could be an honest signal of health or vigor, good sense, rather than Darwin's good taste, that persisted. But the broader concept of female aesthetic preference driving evolution fell out of favor. Science spent a long time trying to explain extravagant beauty purely through survival benefits.
It seems like both Darwin and Wallace kind of struggled with the cost of it all, though.
They both did, in different ways. Darwin didn't fully explain why females would favor costly beauty with no obvious survival link. Wallace downplayed the costs, suggesting only the fittest could afford them, thus signaling fitness.
But watching that leak, the costs seem enormous, not minor.
Absolutely immense. Growing the feathers, defending territory with no food, hours of displaying and fighting every day, burning huge calories, risking injury, attracting predators. It's incredibly expensive. Neither theory fully grappled with why such a wildly costly system would evolve.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, what are the big takeaways from this deep dive into the grouse lake? We see the drama, the female power, the experiments, the history.
Well, first, just the sheer complexity hiding in plain sight. Trying to figure out the why behind animal actions like female choice or male success, it's really tough. Takes you down rabbit holes.
And it shows how science itself evolves, right?
Yeah.
How historical context, even personal beliefs like Wallace's, can shape what gets accepted or ignored for long periods.
Definitely. And the power of just sticking with observation. Sayliss seeing the fighting stop, are modern observers catching that world-weary irritation. Sometimes that cuts through layers of theory.
And for us, maybe it makes you think about choice in general. Is it always rational, based on obvious quality, or influenced by subtler things, position, context, what others are doing?
Yeah, how do we, or animals, weigh up all the information when making a big decision?
Exactly. So we started with poetry, ended up on a cold, chaotic hillside with these amazing birds. We saw the frantic displays, the cool-headed females calling the shots, the shadow of Darwin and Wallace's big fight.
And those enduring mysteries about why one tuxedo-clad male wins out over others who look almost identical.
Which leaves us with that final thought for you. If these female grouse can somehow pick out subtle differences, or maybe follow cues we don't even see, when all the males look so dazzlingly similar, what does that say about quality or attractiveness anywhere? How do you spot Mr. Right when everyone's putting on their best show?
It's a question that definitely echoes